Okay, we are back with a familiar face, Mr. Carlos Cordova from California. Say hi, Carlos. We haven't seen you
Hi.
for a while.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, you do. You have a little slow of a connection, but we'll try to work through that. And I just wanted to open up by saying that I have a new edited video out about Lysenkoism, which is the pseudoscience of Stalinist Russia of the 1930s. Uh, I'm not going to say it's my best work, but those of you that know me, it can't get worse than some of the stuff I've put out before. So, check it out and, learn a little. And, I'm comparing it a lot to postmodernism and third wave feminism today. So check it out. Tell me if you agree, disagree, maybe some similarities. And, we'll probably have a little more coverage of a topic like that, which isn't exactly day to day in the headlines, but is probably an undercurrent going through education right now. So, Carlos, anything new to report since last time we talked about? I think last time you were here, did we talk about? I want to say, um, did we talk about the European Union at all, or was it a
No,
Venezuela topic?
I don't think so. I think a little bit of a Venezuelan thing, um, a little bit of healthcare, I think, but not much.
Okay, so we will talk a little about healthcare today. There's a big strike in West Virginia. I live in Ohio, so West Virginia is right next door. I did see some headlines on it. I did pick out an article from NPR on it to talk about. Probably not going to be great congruence between me and Carlos on this, but maybe some people in the chat. We do have teachers that watch the show, so that'll be interesting. The NCAA is going through another collapse due to its horrible model, which I'm writing an article about. And they still say that athletes shouldn't get paid. And I say, what are you holding on to this model for? And of course, something I've been predicting since the Brexit and other people have been predicting, so it's not just me. Italy is going under right-wing populist revolution. So, Carlos, how about we start West Virginia? Um, so these teachers, it says here, I'll show the article and we can go through it a bit. There's still no school in West Virginia as the salary snag ensures the strike will go on. So I think they're saying $404,000 a year for the one. Well, no, I don't even know what the sign says. So perhaps these teachers need a lesson on clarity of message. But of course, I'm joking. Obviously, West Virginia is one of the more impoverished states in the union. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you think is going to be the outcome of this, or do you think it's the second week? I think. Do you think it's too early to tell?
I think it's been a long class. It's big, it's a huge window. If you want, we can go over the article and then we can comment on it. So
Okay.
go ahead.
So yeah, I'll read through it and then we'll comment. So the union representing West Virginia teachers says their strike, which began on February 22nd, will extend at least through Monday, if not longer, after the state Senate failed to pass the raise teachers are holding out for. Senators voted for a 4% raise for teachers, service personnel, and state troopers. Republican Governor Jim Justice and the Republican-led House of Delegates have already agreed to the 5% raise teachers are demanding. Saturday night's Senate vote ran into a snafu after the Finance Committee was prepared to pass the 4% raise. So the Charleston Gazette-Mail, that's, I guess, the capital city paper, says that the Senate then mistakenly passed the House version of the bill with a 5% raise rather than the 4% version. After Senate leaders announced the mistake, senators walked back their passage vote and certain procedural votes and passed the bill with a 4%. This is stranger than fiction, man. Think about this.
Wow.
With a 4% raise after 9:30 p.m. Saturday, House members wouldn't agree to that change and both sides appointed 3 members to a conference committee which will try to hash out the differences on the bill. This might be one of the craziest legislative screw-ups in West Virginia legislative history. The West Virginia Education Association posted on Facebook, which, by the way, that's the name of their union, the WVEA. You can't make this stuff up. As Jessica Salfia, an English teacher at Spring Mills High School in Berkeley County, West Virginia, Riley told NPR's Weekend Edition, apparently they need more teachers on staff in the Senate to do some proofreading and editing. But Governor Justice, who maintains his support for the 5% raise, said in a statement, the mix-up misses the point. While everyone is focused on the mistakes, my focus is solely on getting our children back to school. Yeah, sure. He said, for crying out loud, we are putting our children at risk. Approximately 200, so yeah, you know what? They put a comma here before the number, which I think is incorrect. So I think NPR could use a proofreader as well. 277,000 students are entering their 8th day of no school, as are 35,000 employees, which doesn't include just teachers, obviously, it's other staff. According to the Associated Press, we are asking that all public schools in West Virginia be closed again on Monday and remain closed until the Senate honors the agreement that was made, said Dale Lee, president of the West Virginia Education Association. WVEA is representing the strikers along with the state branch of the American Federation of Teachers and the West Virginia School Service Personnel Association, reports the AP. The current impasse stands in contrast to the optimism felt last Tuesday when union leaders said the strike was ending after Governor Justice announced his support for the raise, but getting the Senate on board was never a done deal. As Dave Mistich of Senate, he was from Public Broadcasting, West Virginia. Senate President Mitch Carmichael said last week his chamber needed to take a hard look at the fiscal environment before agreeing to the salary demands. It feels like we're perhaps reacting to pressure as opposed to properly managing the fiscal affairs of our state. Republican Senator Greg Boso proposed the amendment to reduce the raise, reports the Charleston Gazette Mail, and said it would save money for a potential 4% raise for all public employees. All public employees, that's interesting. He said while he believes teachers are underpaid, several sects of employees at the Capitol and beyond have gone longer than teachers have without a raise, the newspaper reports. That's actually several sects. Sects would also be the incorrect usage of the word. So I think there's a general problem going on with, media sources coming out of West Virginia. But Dale Lee, president of the West Virginia Education Association, said while teachers want other state workers to get the same 5% raise, they won't settle for less for the sake of equality. So they want others to get the same. So they don't want to settle for a 4% raise if everybody gets a 4% raise. That's what I'm reading out of it. Democratic Senator John Unger, who voted for the 5% raise, told NPR he is seeking a groundswell of support that he is calling the West Virginia Spring. An amazing movement is happening here, he said. Make no mistake, this is a labor movement led mostly by women, said Salfia, who lives in a coal-producing county. The women standing on the front lines of this movement right now are the granddaughters and the daughters of coal miners, and they have watched their fathers and their grandfathers stand up for workers' rights. West Virginia's teachers earn among the lowest pay in the nation, according to a National Education Association ranking, with an average salary in 2016 of around $45K, although the starting salary is much lower. By contrast, the New York's teachers earned an average of around $79,000, according to the NEA. Salfia said teachers will settle for nothing short of a legislative guarantee for the raise. There is a level of trust that does not exist right now, Salfia said. In the meantime, Lee is asking teachers and others to continue protesting at the state capitol on Monday. We must make sure that the Senate hears our voice and knows that we won't back down. So that's the end of the article. So, Carlos, while I look at the comments, what's your impression? Do you think that this strike, I mean, that's a pretty funny story. Do you think that it has like extra legs?
Well, obviously they're reacting to pressure. I think it's undeniable that it's working. I don't know if it's working for what they want, but it's doing something for sure. So yeah, I think it's already making waves. I'm trying to find the specific deal that was struck? What was the deal between the governor and the union?
Well, I
Because
believe the governor and the House of Delegates, which is their lower house, both agreed to the 5% raise, and then the Senate got cold feet and wanted to reduce it to 4%.
yeah, well, I don't know. I just wanted to go into the details. But anyways, I went into I saw a report by Vice this morning. They were
Mhm.
interviewing some of the teachers that went on strike, and she was saying that one of the main reasons why they were even asking for a raise in the first place is because there is a plan by the governor or just the House itself to um, to reduce the health insurance coverage for the teachers.
Mhm.
So basically, they're saying, if you're going to reduce our benefits, meaning that we're going to go into the private sector, which is a lot more expensive than what we do right now. It's basically they're going to pay a lot more for insurance. Then I guess the rationale was, well, if you're going to take that away, you better kind of make up for the difference and give us a raise. I think that's kind of what it all started like that. There's a name for the specific public insurance they have for all teachers, and actually one of the main reasons why they become teachers is because of the benefits that they have. Another problem that they mentioned was that the West Virginia has a big problem because they are one of the most underpaid teachers in the union. No wonder West Virginia has problems with budgets and stuff like that. But also, what ends up happening is that according to the report from Vice, West Virginia has one of the largest openings, on-field openings for public teachers in the nation. And according to this teacher, she was saying, well, what happens is that people don't want to stay here and teach. They just move to another state to teach because they don't pay enough, or just we barely make a living. And then I saw a report, and then last week again I'm going back and forth because I've read a little bit here, a little bit there. There was a governor. He was coming out of a meeting with a union, and he was basically complaining to the union, saying, hey, the thing is that we literally have no money. Our budget is crap. We can't fund anything. Like basically, he's acknowledging the fact that they just their fiscal policy has sucked, or they have put themselves in a position where they don't have enough funding for public services, such as public education. It's kind of like, it reminds me of what happened with Kansas when they started like cutting taxes, and they found out that they can't afford to actually, if you cut taxes, um, and you don't do a proper fiscal policy, then you find the situations where you need to cut education, you need to cut public services, you need to cut entitlements, and it's just a downward spiral, and people move out move out of the state, and people just so it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, of Kansas, of what's happening there.
Well, okay, so I think that the Kansas parallel is not yet applicable, although you could be right in the future. And the reason I say that is because West Virginia has traditionally been a very high union membership, very pro-democratic state, even though in presidential elections they vote for Republicans a lot of times. Um, they've had, for example, this governor recently switched from the Democrats to the Republicans, probably as a result of trying to, catch the Trump star. Um, and also, the issue here is public sector unions. And I just looked up the average salary, the average income of, and this is from CNN Money, of the poorest states. So West Virginia makes, the average median income is $39,170. So the average teacher salary over there is about $6,000 above that. So, it's not, is $45,000 a lot of money? Absolutely not. And what we kind of have to think about is whether the cost of living in West Virginia allows that
Yeah,
type of salary to sustain itself. So that's where
right.
everybody's playing hide and go seek with the numbers. And I would say that,
Yeah, that's important for
yeah,
sure. I think that's totally a valid point. You know, we can. It's kind of like a political thing to say, hey, they have the most underpaid teachers, but I mean, is it really that expensive to live there? I mean, that's the thing.
yeah, and we have here Bandsaw Bandit from Australia and Augusto Pinochet, also from a mysterious. I believe he's actually from Britain, but he identifies as a Chilean right wing tyrant. But he says unions started with the best of intentions, but have become a political financial scam. Public sector unions have ruined education and law enforcement. I think you know I personally have experienced that kind of uh, it does confirm what Pinochet is talking about from people that I know. I'm not going to say who. Um, the question is though, how can you have teachers? You can't have them earn the same pay as like a 7-Eleven clerk or something. It's not realistic to expect people to go for all these certifications and sometimes more than 4 years of formal university in order to get this teaching degree, and then they, what are they supposed to do? Like basically become, clean rooms in their time. He says he's from Spokane, Washington. That's not part of Chile, my friend. But but anyway, what do you think's the answer to that? Carlos, what's your opinion on public sector unions? I know you live in California. They have a pension crisis over there. Do you have any critiques of them, or do you think that they need to be stronger? A lot of people think they do need to be stronger.
The teacher unions are very strong right now. I think they don't need to be stronger.
Mm.
But the problem is that, again, I mean, there's some downsides, and I think that's where the conservatives come in and say, hey, there's a problem there. So yeah, so there's some overarching, like, complete crazy, like, policies that have been passed because of the pressure the teacher unions. Like, for example, the 10-year rule. It's a complete mess because you can't fire teachers after 10 years, and you have what they call the dance of the lemons, right? So they have
Yeah.
bad teachers and they go back around. So that, I think, that just completely defeats the purpose of good education. It's kind of, there has to be a balance. You have to make sure that you have they're properly funded. If it's public, if you're gonna have a public system, right? Uh, they have to make sure that it's properly funded. That's number one. And then number two, meaning, if when you say properly funded, I mean teachers are get paid enough to live. Because you're an employee union, so you demand the employer to pay you enough for living, just basic living. So I think the unions are important, but again, it's not a save all kind of, solve all, save all, like Jimmy Dore will say. Like, they basically sanctify the unions. It's like there's big problems with the unions. But in this case, what we're talking about in West Virginia, it's the unions just so happens to be the representation of the teachers, and they're kind of like the organizing force. So yes, they play a big part because they're kind of the one to make changes. But we need to get to the issue here is that they're talking about is that their benefits are being cut, and says, hey, the benefits are being cut. Let's organize and let's strike. So there's just kind of a reaction to something else. So it's kind of, we need to look at the main reason why this started, and that is, find this so interesting because we see all these. For example, the NPR article only talks about wages and doesn't talk much about health insurance, which I think is where the main problem is. And the thing is, it's a hard issue because what do you do with and the fiscal policy of a state? You're ballooning the prices, and you're expecting the state to pay for those ballooning prices. It's a hard thing because these pharmaceutical companies are having so much power that it's almost like, I don't want to say that the state has to come in and price ceilings, but holy shit, man, what do we do?
Yeah, I think. By the way, your signal is not great, so I try to lower the bandwidth, but it's still not. It's not super good. So we'll see how good it is. If necessary, you might have to drop out and come back. But in the meantime, while we get set with Carlos again, I'd like to look at some of the comments here because we have a few different voices. We have a Swede Speaks from Australia. Larry Gerke just tuned in too. I see you, buddy. And Pinochet, of course, and Bandsaw. So, all of you guys are talking about Italy. We will get to Italy, of course. I've been talking about Italy for a while. Not every day, not all the time, but I think it's a very important issue. But to talk a little about what Carlos was alluding to, I think we can reflect on some of the things that, for example, Bandsaw says our unions here in Australia are corrupt and limp-wristed. The teachers' union here in Australia have turned into SJWs more interested in fucking up the way teachers teach instead of concentrating on their original agenda, teachers' conditions and wages. Well, I have seen that in one of my recent articles even highlights it in the Hard News Network, which you should check out, where I talk about multiculturalism as a failure in schools. Is my opinion, okay? The issue is that some of these teachers unions, especially the one in Chicago, are extremely militant, and over there they actually issue for example, declarations where they've called Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, basically a puppet of the corporations and things like that, which he well might be, but that's not the place of the union necessarily to call him that. That it's supposed to be, I would say, a congenial conversation between the city and the teachers union. It shouldn't always be this confrontational relationship, even though, I mean, let's be real, it is. I mean, that's the way it is. And I think that a Swede Speaks also makes this remark. So West Virginia is Democratic and one of the poorest states. Well, it's not quite as simple as saying that, okay? Because I think both me and Carlos are very critical for different reasons of the Democratic Party. Him from the progressive side, me from, the opposite perspective. But West Virginia is kind of, it's up there in the mountains. It's a coal mining state. There aren't a lot of other natural resources there. There's not a lot else going on over there. There's no big industries over there besides coal. So it developed into a democratic state because of the I think the United Mine Workers, UMW, in the John L. Lewis, I think in the 50s, especially, he started to turn it really into a union superpower. And it's stayed that way. That's the character of the state. If there was no coal mining there, maybe it would have developed differently, like Vermont did, or New Hampshire, because those are mountainous states, but they don't have a huge coal industry. So it's not, as much as I would like to shit on the Democratic Party, it's a little more of a special case here, in my opinion. Carlos, what do you think about these states that become beholden to one commodity? What do you think the solution is? Because there really isn't anything else to do in West Virginia.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, to see, like you're saying, like the steel, right? Steel and what's the other one? And coal, kind of, it's their kind of life and blood of the region. It's hard because what do you do? Where do you get your major public funding coming as taxes, right? I mean, you're expecting people to have jobs and business to rise so that you can have more public funding for these schools, but it's quite hard. So let me read you a little bit of the New York Times talking about this, so we can get a little more clear view. So it says, and it's not yet clear exactly what the state will do to stem the rising cost of insurance. That more than salary, which lawmakers had agreed before the strike to raise by 2%, was a tipping point for many of the teachers who joined the walkout. So talking about the rising cost of insurance. Teachers say that they have struggled with rising premiums and other healthcare costs. And this is what I was looking for. The Public Employees Insurance Agency, which administers the state's employee health plans, had said it will freeze rates in 2019. But teachers have pushed for a longer-term fix. Most people are not completely satisfied, said Erica Newsom, 32, English teacher from Madison, who was part of the grassroots group teachers who first began discussing their frustration with health insurance costs. we are underpaid and we do need a raise. But if we aren't going to fix insurance, it's just the same story as before. So, anyways, I don't know if that added any value, but I don't know, man. It's pretty hard, but it's interesting what's happening in West Virginia. We'll see how it develops.
Yeah, and I actually turned my camera off because I think we'll be able to get a better connection this way. But um,
I
I
can turn
have
mine
here
off.
for. Well, I think you're doing well now.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll keep you on, and maybe when I, well, we'll see how it goes because it's working great right now.
Okay.
Uh, so we have Larry. I think Larry is married to Cher, who's also a teacher, and he says what he's asking about the Chicago relationship between the union and the mayor. Why not bold like a leopard? Yes, it is an adversarial relationship, and the teachers and union members are citizens too. If they want to attack Rahm, so be it. Well, I didn't say that they should not attack Rahm Emanuel, but I think that when you have a union that's issuing, and I'll try to pull it up while next time Carlos is talking. They really, if you read these press releases, what I analogize it to is a press release from the Symbionese Liberation Army. If any of you remember that was the group that kidnapped Patty Hearst. It's the same type of rhetoric. It's basically like they're ready to go into the full-on resistance, and it is against Rahm Emanuel, who is an idiot, but it's a school contract negotiation. It's not Escape from New York. Bandsaw Bandit says, how can teachers teach when at least 20% of students are prescribed mind-altering narcotics? I think, Carlos, did you mention that before, the drug issue?
No, I haven't, but that's a good point.
Yeah. And then Pinochet says, before he adapted the Prussian educational system, all American schools led world statistics. Gerke says the Democratic Party are doing a great job shitting all over themselves. And then Bandsaw says, schools should be there for teaching fundamentals and critical thinking, right? Hasn't been like that for a long time, no matter what country. And then he corrects himself because he wrote thing instead of thinking. Good job, bro. At least in Australia, you guys correct yourselves. Yeah, that's about it. Look, so what I'm thinking is that West Virginia at a certain point might have to really go through a basic local recession, and it had let's be honest, it's not like it's been great for. I mean, was West Virginia ever great? That's a good question.
That's a good question.
What's that?
That's a good question, but yeah.
Yeah, they had that one season with Geno Smith at quarterback, but that doesn't reflect on the whole state. And that segues me into the NCAA. Now, Carlos, I need you to freestyle here. I don't know if you're a huge sports fan. I think you do like baseball, right? What do you
Just a little bit.
What do you think about the NCAA paying athletes? What's your opinion on that?
It's pretty crazy how they don't, right? I mean, at some point, if it was just a thing where you have leagues where it was just about competing against each other, and it's just kind of, it was kept between colleges, and it was not.
Mm-hmm.
If the broadcasting was just between colleges, there was no sponsors, kind of cameras, like how it is in NCAA, I'll be okay for them not to raise the money. But the money they get out of those guys, it's fucking ridiculous. It's just, now that you have introduced the market into these games, it's only fair for them to get some type of of pay, because they're literally they're actually some market to get promotions for different companies. So it obviously you should see. I don't know if this is what you're going to talk about, but I saw that Jimmy Dore the other day, and he was talking about that there was a issue in the court, and the NCAA said that in their constitutional right to deny payments to the students. And I don't know which amendment they put on. Maybe you find this, but it was a type of crazy move, judicial move that the NCAA used using the constitution justify this.
Hey,
So
hey,
I
Carlos, you
remember
might.
what Jimmy Dore was saying.
I think you might want to turn your camera off because I'm having interference here. I don't know if everybody else is, but let's keep both of our
Okay,
cameras off. Sorry about that. Keep going.
oh, that's fine. I'll keep mine on. Uh, yeah, like I was saying, the NCAA it's bringing up their side of kind of using the constitutional amendment. I want to say is the First Amendment. Funny because that amendment has been used before to not pay people of color in the past. It's kind of a I don't know. Maybe you want to expand that, but for sure.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's been decades where I've been following this, and I mean that literally. And I'm not that old, but I did a project when I was a sophomore in high school where I basically said, it's uh, everybody talks about this whole thing where they get a free college education, but in my opinion, it's bullshit. Their college education isn't worth anything because most of their degrees are in communications or other non-high demand fields, and often, uh, in fact, I've seen pretty egregious cases, but especially at University of North Carolina. But there are schools where they develop a parallel curriculum for these students, and in my opinion, and I'm teasing what I'm going to release tomorrow, which I'll probably do a longer video just focused on that. Um, in my opinion, you have to take the academics out of college sports, and if that sounds retarded, that's exactly the point. um, these people that they want to play in college sports, their real goal is not to play for University of Syracuse or UCLA out where you live or Ohio State. Some people that they're more into it than others, but let's be real. For college basketball, especially, but also college football, the goal is to reach professional level. And there's more and more kids who are leaving early. They're not fulfilling their degree commitment. When they get that scholarship, and it's really a joke. And in my opinion, at some point, you're going to get these sports basically losing the actual recruits because the NBA is going to start taking people and signing them straight out or drafting them straight out of high school in higher numbers than before. They already have for several years. Everybody knows about Kobe Bryant. Everybody knows about Kevin Garnett and LeBron James and just lesser degree Moses Malone if you're from an earlier era. And I've seen other countries. Okay, I don't know about Venezuela where you're from, but in Latin America, especially, I think in Chile, in Mexico, certainly, where colleges have affiliated teams that are they're probably owned or partially owned by corporations or investors or stockholders. That basically they're there to represent the college's brand, and for all intents and purposes, the players are professional players in every regard, and it doesn't detract from the academic integrity of UNAM, which is the National Autonomous University of Mexico. It doesn't detract from, I think it's La Católica in Lima in Peru. I think that they have a team. So that would be my solution. I don't know. You guys can chew on that. What's your opinion on that, Carlos? Or do you have like a strong feeling either way?
Yeah, like we touched on the beginning, it's really cool idea. It's like let's make their life an NBA or professional type of career rather than just say, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go for communications, but I'm really just gonna play basketball. It's kind of just make him a I don't know, professional basketball player major or something of detracts from the talent. I feel like.
Yeah, I think
I've never heard that before, but that's a pretty good point.
Yeah, I think if somebody wants the academic side and they want to play for that team, and there could be some arrangement where they have some special schedule of costs for their classes or something. I don't think they should get a free scholarship. I think that's kind of a joke at this point. the whole free scholarship thing. But if you're getting, let's say, $200,000 a year salary, why not? Some of them they might want to pay $40,000 of that into a degree. Some of the people that are not just concerned with sports, and there are people like that. I know Larry Gerke is like joking about all these stupid jocks or whatever, but I think that about does it for the NCAA for today, because I am going to be talking about it a little more as we go into March Madness. That's one of my favorite sports events of the year. It is getting a little worse, as I've been alluding to, and as we're talking about getting worse, we have our user, a second super dictator. I think every time Carlos comes on, we have both Augusto Pinochet and Joseph Stalin. Okay, Mr. Stalin, I think, or sorry, General Secretary Stalin. I don't want to confuse your pronouns, but I actually did a video on one of your buddies, Mr. Lysenko or Dr. Lysenko, earlier today. So please check that out. Anyways, I did find that article, and I'm going to show it. It's a press release from the Chicago Teachers Union. What's that, Carlos?
Hey, Ramon, try to put your camera. I think if you just put your camera on.
Put my camera on?
Yeah.
You guys see me?
Let's just try it out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it happens more on your end than on my end, but I don't see anybody complaining either.
Oh, yeah.
But for some reason, I get interference when you get on. So here's what I'm talking about. Karen Lewis, who's the head of the Chicago Teachers Union, she's pretty militant, and so she issues this statement about the chief executive officer of Chicago Public Schools, whose name is Forrest Claypool. And it starts out like this: Emmanuel's handpicked school boss has forged public documents and run an apartheid-like school system. So incorrect usage, it's the incorrect tense of the word run in the title, but she does use apartheid-like school system, say teachers who demand his removal. Let's read that again. Emmanuel's handpicked school boss has forged public documents and run. Yeah, it's incorrect sentencing. This from a teachers union. It should be runs.
Has run. Yeah.
And runs.
Runs. Has forged and runs. Yeah. Runs.
Yeah, because it's singular. Right. I mean, and it's two people. Yeah, we could both agree this is fucked up.
Runs.
And then, so this is just the headline. It says the Chicago Teachers Union issued the following statement Wednesday in the wake of the news that CPS Inspector General Nick Schuler is calling for the firing of CPS CEO Forrest Claypool for ethics violations. These remarks can be attributed to CTU Vice President Jesse Sharkey. The public can attribute a long list of wrongdoings to Rahm Emanuel from running an apartheid-like. But so again, they have to use apartheid again, like public education system, to handing off public dollars to privileged campaign donors. So yeah, I mean, I don't have to read the rest of it, but it's the same here. They call him a crony or whatever. That's fine. Crony, I think, is okay. Let me see if I can get a picture of this Forrest Claypool guy. Yeah, this looks like an apartheid Nazi, right? Whatever. I don't care. I don't live in Chicago. We should have Soon on one day and have him. You've been on with Soon Fei-Yang, maybe? No? I think he was on.
So. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. He's been on like a couple times. Interesting guy from Chicago. In my opinion, if you want a good relationship between the staff and the management, you can't have rhetoric like that between the Chicago Teachers Union and the morons who run Chicago schools. But maybe there's people who are wrong on both sides. I could be, maybe I'm expecting too much. So that's about. How about we talk about Italy, right? What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, let's go with that.
So, as you guys know, in 2016, June 2016, the people of the United Kingdom decided to say "fuck you" to the European Union, or 52% of them said that. But basically, since then, their government has been kind of stepping all over their own dick in order to prevent the will of the people from taking place. Yes, I'm being biased about it, but I think that when when there's a democratic vote and it's explicitly called that, that's what a referendum is. There's referendums on a lot of different things, and that's the intention of it. You can't just go and say, well, we can't really listen to that because people don't know what the hell they're talking about, because otherwise the actual value of a vote gets thrown in the trash. Carlos, you've experienced Venezuelan democracy, you've experienced California, you've experienced the U.S. presidential elections. So let's start with the Brexit. What do you think was the proper response to that vote? And do you think that it's been followed, or do you think I'm kind of, exaggerating when I say that they failed to follow the will of the people?
I agree. I agree with you. I think it's clear that they say that they don't know anything about it, but they are elected officials saying that. Hey, officials, you mean that people that voted for you doesn't know what the fuck they're doing? It's like that means so that means that they made also a bad decision about you. It's just, the whole argument falls apart. But yeah, they've been trying to dance around it pretty heavily.
Yeah,
the fact that the people wanted that. So
I've seen a lot of people who also on the conservative side, by the way, I've seen cases where people vote for a left-wing candidate and then like like with Barack Obama. Okay, Barack Obama won clearly the 2008 election. You could make noise about how he was the media helped him and nobody fact checked anything he did, and he got a free ride, but he did win, and he kicked McCain's ass, and McCain deserved to lose. And I'm reading a book about how it wasn't really the greatest example of an election with a fair platform, but it was a fair election, and that's why when Obama won, and I didn't vote in that election because I thought it was the biggest bullshit in the world. Both of those candidates, I was like, yeah, I mean, he won. Let's see what happens. McCain is also a moron. So, but a lot of conservative pundits were saying, well, Barack Obama is this dark horse. He doesn't. People don't know what the hell they're getting. But with what's happened since then, Carlos, would you say people did not know what they were getting with Barack Obama?
Know what they're getting.
I hate to compare him to the Brexit, but let's just. I mean, we're comparing apples to oranges, but I mean, what the hell? What would be your answer to that?
Like as a kid, I thought there are people that actually read and like knew about certain things that I really thought that when I was going to be an adult, people that knew been in the country and they were well-read people and people responsible, generally responsible. But as I grew older, right now I'm 26. I realized that it's not the case, and I think what I've also realized is that adults in general, voters more than anything, are educated by media more than anything. It's just and it's just a lot of it. It's with Obama was a lot of media like geared towards him, although totally the same thing about Hillary. That's another story. I mean, I don't know if they knew what they were getting. I think a lot of people were following the energy, the emotion of the campaign. It was emotion going on in that campaign, and I think that's what to the polls.
But when you're talking about the Brexit, I do believe that people knew what they wanted because it really was bothering a lot of British people, and this is why I think today was a very clear statement from Italians as in general, but obviously there's people who do want to stay in the EU, that they don't think that the European Union can be a true representative of the interests of all different European countries that are a part of it. And I have the article here, and it's from the Daily Express, which is the most pro-Brexit mainstream British magazine or daily, if you can call it mainstream. But basically, they say Italian election 2018 results: Italy is over. Twitter meltdown after populist success. A new hashtag has started trending in Italy in the wake of the historical success of populist parties, with users claiming Italy is over party. It has been revealed. So people are partying. They're saying, oh, Italy just screwed themselves in the ass, basically. But let's read through it a bit. But this is prior to the final results. So keep in mind, something could happen where it isn't as extreme as people think it is. But it says the exit polls in Italy are showing that the Eurosceptic 5-star movement, I think they're the Movimento Cinque Stelle party, set to win the most votes, and the anti-immigration party Lega Nord are due to win more votes than Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia. They have everything. How am I picking, Carlos? I've picked 4 articles today. Every one of them is completely wrong in punctuation and usage. It's like I'm some sort. Every one of them. But wow. It says the front page headline.
It's falling apart, Ramon.
Yeah, man. Italy is just the beginning, baby. Italy and West Virginia, the 2 final grains of sand in the hourglass. The front page headline on the first edition of La Stampa newspaper says Di Maio wins, Italy ungovernable. That's pretty optimistic. People took to Twitter to vent their outrage at the projected results, not just for the prospect of difficult negotiations, but also because of the politics of the leading parties. One Twitter user said, Italy is over party. Karl Marx turning in the grave. Do you hear him? I don't know what the hell that has to do with Italy. He was German or something. What the fuck would he care?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he was German, yeah.
He was German. I think he lived in England for a while, but I don't think he ever lived in Italy.
Yeah.
Another said, after this, we can go back to the caves and the dinosaurs. Italy is over party. And another added, dear Americans, we're sorry that those who today voted for homophobia, racism, and fascism had the nerve to criticize you for your president.
Here we go, man. Holy shit. But have you heard of the guy? There's a guy named Mark Blythe. Have you heard about him?
No.
Mark Blythe. You might like him. He's more of a leftist anyway, but it's an interesting guy. I think he's kind of for me, in my opinion, it's kind of like the Jordan Peterson of the left kind of.
Okay.
This guy in a Brexit, and he's one of the Brexit, even though he's against it, and he's interesting points about kind of the parallels between the discontent of the people that voted for Trump and the discontent of the Brexit. The CS system right now that it's not working for them, right? And there's a bunch of metrics you can look at, but basically the general idea is that there's a lot of people that are hurting with the current system, and whenever they have a chance to say fuck you to the system or find a way out or something else, whenever they're given a chance or an option to kind of use their vote or use their voice to express their use it. And because they thought Brexit is not really working for UK, so fuck you. It's funny how we try to put it as a right left right kind of discussion, but this is I think both sides actually were in that 52%, and that there's a lot of economic statistics that you can look at, trade situation with the EU, all the decisions made on the and how that little effect had on England, or if it had enough, it was impacting. So interesting guy if you ever want to look into it.
Yeah, maybe send me one of those links to his videos. I think that certainly the left case for Brexit was definitely not absent. A number of Labour members of Parliament were active on the Brexit side, including Kate Hoey and Gisela Stewart, I think her name is, and there were other ones that were kind of behind the scenes in favor of it, and a lot of Labour voters in the northeast of England, which is more working class and left behind by the globalist economy, the global economy,
Right. Right.
and immigration too. They started to vote for. They definitely voted for Brexit. A lot of them have voted for the UK Independence Party, which is the it's the explicitly pro-Brexit party in Britain. But again, so we're talking about Italy, and in the context of this, I'll just explain to the viewer what the Italian, like the way that Italy's political system works. So they do have, I believe, proportional representation in the lower house, the Congress of Deputies, and then they have, local elections for seats in the Senate. And I want you to feast your eyes on one thing that they have that we don't. This is somebody mentioned her in the chat. This is Paola Saulino, and this is actually the least X-rated photo I could find, because this woman, she said Paola claimed that she will complete her 10-city pompa, which is also Italian slang for oral sex tour, and found herself a little bit tired after the first leg of referendum or an oral sex tour, which again is not properly grammar this sentence, but whatever, who gives a fuck about grammar at this point? This is truly the most Italian politician there is. She's probably better dressed than most people in your entire city, and she's probably had more affairs than you'll ever have in your life. But that's the thing, that I don't believe that the EU can actually represent the true soul of any of the countries that it represents at the same time. Obviously there's differences in the health, the general health and diet of Italians, and that of Greeks, and that of Swedes, and that of Poles. Okay, so in my opinion, the idea of uniting Europe into one bloc, but was never a great idea to begin with. It's hard enough here in the United States, which is less heterogeneous than over there. And Carlos, I think, speaking as a Latin American, do you remember any case where they tried to unite all of Latin America together? I don't think that you could really see where there'd be common interests between Argentina and Costa Rica, or Dominican Republic. The people there are very, very different in their lifestyles and their tastes.
Well, there is a union. There is, but again, it's nothing like the EU. I don't think so. But there is something called Mercosur, right? Like the market of the South, which they set the trade. They kind of, that's a place for all the South American countries to come in and the trade agreements between them, and kind of one nation. But I think that's a little different. It's more of a good tool for each country to kind of place their, this is the resources we have, and this is the trade policies that I think favor us, and kind of like they kind of negotiate in between. But it's not trying to like represent the whole South American. The other thing that has happened, what?
I think also the big difference is that whereas in Mercosur, like you said, is really a trade forum for a lot of these countries, like Peru, and they can come in and they can represent their interests to all of Latin America at the same time, as opposed to going one-on-one with, let's say Cuba. But they don't levy taxes for Mercosur. They do in the EU. They don't write laws that are governing Peru or Ecuador or any of those countries over there through Mercosur. It's not as invasive of a process over there, to my knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly what I was. It's right now today, but there has been the history of South America. We've had, for example, the Gran Colombia, which was when Simón Bolívar, a bunch of countries in the South America, he united. He was the president of something called Gran Colombia, which was Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela. And he
Panama?
was, Panama was part of Colombia.
Yeah.
at that time. So yes, Panama as well. But you know that didn't last because it was too bureaucratic and it was too big, and they kind of dissolved the Congress and they realized it's just not going to work. There's other situations like there was a war between Paraguay, Uruguay, and parts of Brazil, and they were trying to. I think one Uruguay was trying. Oh, it was no, it was Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and Uruguay wanted to unify with Paraguay, but it kind of never. Paraguay doesn't have that many resources, and they kind of left them to die. It was one of the interesting chapters in Latin American history on that. But I mean, you know, another one is Haiti and the Dominican Republic, right? I mean, they were once, you know, Haiti was independent, separated from the bigger Republic thing. So I think nothing like the EU, but those are the cases where you can find the most, you know, the closest example.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that Italy is so bad of a fit for the EU is because it was very hard to unify Italy to begin with. Those that don't know, Italy, I think, united in the 1860s throughout the decade. It was a union between kind of the chaotic South and the Kingdom of Sardinia, which is, you know, the House of Savoia, with I think King Vittorio Emanuele the First, whatever, you know. Um, but in any case, they weren't. It's not as if there's one Italian language that unites them. It's not as if there's actually a German-speaking part in the north anyway. Uh, it's kind of in the Alps region. In the south, complete. I think that there's a joke that there's the pasta Italian, and then there's the what is it, the not millet, pasta and polenta Italian. So there's people who eat like kind of a cornmeal in the north, and then there's ones in the south that they eat a bunch of pasta or whatever. So that's like a class and culture difference between the two. So then they join the EU. The two parts of it, or the two ends of Italy, don't really get along. There's all sorts of regions that they don't really love being part of Italy anyway, including the north. By the way, the guy who might become prime minister of Italy was originally a separatist politician for the Northern League, the Lega Nord, and you know, they decide, oh, we're going to be part of Europe, a country that, or a region that has even less in common with us, because there's nothing that will unite Italians more than having to be partners with, you know, countries that they hate, like England. Because if you know anything about soccer hooliganism, yeah, those two don't get along. The fan bases of the clubs in those countries, you know, Liverpool and Manchester and West Ham and England in the 80s and the 70s, they used to go into the continent and get into a bunch of dust ups and whatever, and it's caused cultural ramifications to this day. Now maybe that's an exaggeration. Obviously, not everybody in both of those countries is a football hooligan, but it causes an image problem when you're talking, especially in terms of England. Um, Also, another topic, Carlos doesn't talk about fascism as much as most progressives that I know. But in Italy, there really is an issue with traditional fascism. Okay, and it's not like I'm not just exaggerating. It's just the truth. There are parties over there that literally believe in fascism as an ideology. There are also explicit communist parties. And in this election, the further left parties have really taken it on the chin. I think they're going to win like something like 15% in total, all the leftist parties, and that's kind of the death knell for the EU. Uh, Carlos, maybe I don't know how familiar you are with the situation. Why would you say that there's been this swing to the right in Italy specifically, whereas in England, this Corbyn guy, who I'm not a fan of, it still has a very solid base of support?
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the Italian politics,
Yeah,
but
I
that's
think
interesting. It's crazy. 15%. That's pretty bad.
I think a lot of people don't care in America about not to I'm not going to pick on you, but I'm saying a lot of people here don't care about anything going on over there. So a lot of people don't even know who Corbyn is. You do, right? But a lot of
Yeah,
people
right.
don't. And what I'm referring to is that there's a guy in England named Jeremy Corbyn who I find to be, everything that I don't want in terms of leadership. But he has a very good personality with voters, very good, and he does have a clear vision of what he wants, which is pretty much the exact opposite of everything I want. But he has a good rapport with people. He knows how to keep touch with his grassroots activists. Many people were comparing him to Bernie Sanders. What I see as a difference between Corbyn, who you can't fight with his personality, you can't fight or you can't criticize the fact that he knows how to stick it out, fight the press, fight negative coverage. He's a real he's a real trooper when it comes to that. In Italy, you see these smarmy people at the top of all the parties, including the left, that wear their fantastic fashion suits, and nobody can stand them. And when it comes to the left, a lot of these leaders over there, to my observation, and I could be, oversimplifying it, sold their souls to the EU and to immigration, meaning I don't know if you follow this, but if you want to object, feel free to comment. Italy is a country that has never given up its Catholic identity, and this is in contrast to Germany, which has a huge difference between regions. A lot, for example, Bavaria is very Catholic. The north is more Protestant or secular. France has adopted secularism since the 19th century mostly. Italy, even though there are a lot of secular Italians, the general culture is very close to Catholicism. When they see this influx of Muslim immigrants, or immigrants in general, that includes gypsies, by the way, who are not Muslim, uh, unless there's a few exceptions, let's not assume, but they see this as an attack on the very core of what it means to be an Italian, and the and the Democratic Party, which is what is called in Italy, the alliance of all these left-wing parties. It has nothing to do with our Democratic Party, obviously, but they've always been explicitly pro-immigration. But meanwhile, southern Italy has been one of the poorest regions in Europe for decades. Northern Italy is one of the most prosperous regions in Europe. It's also one of the more left-wing voting regions in Europe. And it's been a very clear, cause for a fault line between the two regions. And what's happened because of the latest waves of immigration is that even the North, they've rejected the left wing in politics and on the national level, because they're actually not delivering what traditional left wing voters wanted. They're really just delivering more social spending, especially for immigration. And Italy has to ferry all of these immigrants into Europe that would otherwise be turned back. I know that they've been trying to interdict a lot of those efforts. Carlos, what are your thoughts about that? How does that compare to, for example, in Latin America, there are a lot of countries that continue to have strong Catholic identities. I know Brazil does. I don't know about Venezuela, but would you say that there could be similar countries like that in Latin America, or is that really an issue of the immigration problem that I was illustrating?
I think our immigration problem is a little different. I don't think we are like, there is an identity, there is a Catholic identity in mostly country, but this type of religious-driven political, movements or stuff like that are very, very minor. I mean, we do have like Christian parties all over South America, but they, it's not like the evangelists here in the U.S. have power over the certain political parties across the nation. But over there it's really just it's very, very specialized political party. It's not as huge as you say it is in Italy. I think the problems in Latin America and immigration is different. I mean, right now we have but I was told that Panama is having a huge problem with immigration, not only from Venezuela, because a bunch of people live in Venezuela, but from all over the world. I mean, a lot of people are going to Panama, and one of the things, for example, just to put Venezuela on blast here, they had about 300,000 Venezuelans come in to Panama, both legally and illegally, right? And they're having a lot of trouble because their economy is not that great. They're right now they're negotiating a trade agreement with Costa Rica, and the problem with those trade NAFTA, where one of the nations has it's well developed and they have a big consumer market, and then the other nation is not prepared to supply that much prime. I mean, that point is not. So what they're trying to do, Panama is trying uh, industrial, in this case, agricultural businesses, because if they do enact that kind of trade policies, the farmers in Panama are going to be hit. And I know I'm going off subject here, but going back to immigration, they visa requirements for can't how many people coming in. I mean, there has to be some type of it's it's kind of going back to Europe. What Germany did. It's a little bit concerning because I'm pro some type of policies across Europe because the situation is just unbearable for these people going to war. There has to be some type of cost sharing, in between countries. You can't have just one country say, "Oh yeah, okay," and then all the others say, "Oh fuck you." There has to be some type of balance because otherwise you're gonna balance the society. You're just gonna get hit with a bunch of immigrants, and the thing is, yes, they're with these immigrants because they're coming from wars and they probably were involved in wars. So you never know. But on the other hand, I think these immigrants are actually leaving pretty harsh situations, and and a lot of political parties in Europe are trying to use this as a way to say, hey, there's just a bunch of Russians. They're trying to create no-go zones, and there's some truth to that. They're coming from war, dude. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff. That's kind of where my views
Well, I
are.
think I think what one of the stories that got unnoticed this weekend by a lot of people, but certainly not by people like Mike Cernovich and Raheem Kassam, who is on Breitbart, is the fact that Angela Merkel did admit finally that there are no-go zones in Germany. And it's sad that we have to, because if people would have just admitted it to begin with, it wouldn't have become some sort of political hot potato. Oh, Breitbart,
Right.
you're a bunch of fucking Nazis or something. I think that uh, one of the reasons that people are turning to right-wing parties. I wouldn't say I support every right-wing movement. Obviously, in Poland, I don't think I could support that movement. I understand why people are supporting movements like that, but I wouldn't support it personally because I have a more liberty-based philosophy. They have a more traditional Christian-based philosophy, but that's Poland. One of the issues is that their core offer to the people is we are here to represent you, the people of Warsaw or Grodno or in Germany, the people of Baden and Munich or whatever it is, and that's a legitimate platform. It's saying that we're not here to represent a larger global elite or corporate elite, whoever it is, and whether you're one of these conspiracy people or you're somebody who just believes that there are corporate elites, which I mean, I don't know how you can deny that there is one. I think that's why people are turning to the populist right, And by the same token, if they wanted to, that you've seen in Greece, they turned to what's that party called? Syriza. There's a populist left over there that a couple of years ago they also won an election. People do not want people. They don't want a politician in power that they think is beholden to somebody that's above them. They don't want kind of a vassal kingdom. A vassal kingdom being, in the Middle Ages, there would be an emperor, the emperor of Rome, and there would be vassal kingdoms that would pay tribute to him. And that's why I think that I absolutely I think in Italy I can definitely see a lot of parallels between the five-star movement and a lot of libertarian groups that we have here in the United States. They just want less control from above, less taxation, and all of that. Um, let's see if there's any comments here, Carlos. Unless you have anything to say, you can go ahead. I'm just going
No,
to
I'm
read the
good.
comments. Um, we have Antonio Rossi. Are you Italian, by the way? Hi, guys. Greetings from Italy. Welcome. Or should I say benvenuto? Benvenuto a libertà. I know I'm probably butchering that, but we've had enough killing of that English language in some of our articles earlier. But, congratulations. I personally think you guys made the right choice. I think, Carlos, do you think they made the right choice today, or I think you'd rather wait and see?
I don't think I know enough to make an argument here.
Yeah, that's like there's a lot of people they don't like. Italy isn't really in the front of American news, but actually there's a lot of companies in Italy that they manufacture some pretty high level equipment, industrial equipment, especially in the north, in the Milan and the Lombardia area. That's what I know about it, and I think that Antonio, who says yes, I am pretty satisfied since the five-star movement is anti-EU. I think that there's other countries that will probably, at least they'll drift towards that way. I know Holland was they drifted further towards the anti-EU side in their last election. They didn't go all the way, like some people were prognosticating, but I personally I believe in sovereignty of all nations. My family, they were from Israel. There's a lot of people that they don't understand that, including Israelis, by the way, they don't understand the idea of national sovereignty, and every country having a path to self-determination, and every country being able to determine its trade policy or whatever. So can we segue to the issue of tariffs? Carlos, what did you think about that announcement last week that sent the stock market just tumbling?
Yeah, the you're talking about the steel tariffs, yeah.
Yep.
Which countries are we mostly indebted to? Not indebted to, but I guess linked to on the steel trade. Do you know?
Well, China and Russia and Ukraine, I believe they have very large steel industries. China has been getting more and more of it. India has been getting more of a share of the world steel market share in the past few years. If you want, I can bring up.
Yeah, I don't know, but I guess my main thing, because something similar happened a couple. Was it a month ago or so when they put the tariffs on the solar panels, solar cells? I think it was a 20% or so tariff on them, and I guess if it is like it is on the solar panel industry, which it's funny because I saw a lot of my progressive friends kind of being mad about it, but I kind of had to read about it a little more because I didn't understand why the heck would he do that. And then I come to find out that they interviewed people, and this is just I'm talking about solar panels because I think there might be some parallels here. They interviewed some people on the kind of like they worked on the manufacturing of solar panels in US, and there's two issues, right? One issue is that the US doesn't produce enough to kind of satisfy the demand that the US needs right now for solar panels. But the other, the upside is, hey, the difference between importing a solar panel with the tariffs versus buying a solar panel from some national manufacturer, it's actually the same. It's kind of, they made it such a way that it would make no difference for you to buy in the U.S. versus outside. Now, what's going to happen? Again, I'm trying to make a parallel here. What's going to happen is that at the beginning you're going to see a plummet because you're basically are trying to supply. You're trying to meet the demand of a product, right? So if your supply goes low, obviously you're gonna take a hit because you have more demand than supply. But 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 this might be good because you might say, okay, well, if you absolutely need to generate that to generate the supply enough to meet the demand, then we're gonna possibly invest more into more production of these panels. I don't know how this is gonna go for the solar panels, and I don't know if that's a good comparison parallel with steel, because I know I've been into the steel industries here in California, and they're pretty old. I mean, they are shit. I mean, they I went to once called California Steel Industry, and we did a tour. We organized a tour for that, just as part of our college, one of those things, and film. It's funny because they use those things are so old that they filmed Iron Man and 007 parts of the movie in there because the deposits, kind of picture those places where usually the villain goes and they capture a lady, and then the hero has to go and get it, kind of kind of places.
Oh
And those
yeah,
place those
like the
those
state of
places.
New Jersey.
So imagine those like old deposits, like that's exactly how they look, right? I don't know how the state of the industry still industry it is in the US, but that's one of my concerns. I think on the short term, I don't know how this is planned out. I think things like this should not be done as a swift of a pen. I think these things should be planned from now go up ever so often years, and then so that the demand doesn't, the high side of things in the US doesn't take a hit. I think these things are kind of not thought of, very very much. It things that a lot of these things seem to be like very knee jerk reactions to bad trade policies in the past. And I think I and that's why my general is negative, just because of the hit that the industries are going to. Probably the most libertarian comment that I've made in your show, but you gotta think about the private. I mean, where they prepared to meet the demand. I mean, is this gonna are they gonna have to fire people? Because what happened on when they put the solar panel tariffs, a bunch of installer, kind of like Solar City and all these big solar installers had to fire a bunch of people, thousands of people. So you're gonna generate a bunch of unemployment at the beginning. Hopefully, I guess the idea is that, like the libertarians say, like the free market will take care of you at the end. But the fact is that if you do a hit just out of nowhere, you're gonna get a hit in the streets. So that's kind of my point on the tariffs in general.
Yes, and the other libertarian argument is that yes, there could be some jobs generated by the addition of U.S. manufacturing jobs, but it could be also balanced with the passing of the cost of the new material costs to the consumer. So the steel costs more.
Right, right, right.
If let's say Fiat Chrysler in Detroit decides to continue to import steel from China and other foreign countries, you can see here that the U.S. is number 4 in steel production according to the World Steel Association. This is Wikipedia, but it is the World Steel Association, behind Japan, China, and the EU and India. So we're the 4th largest in the world currently. I believe as late as the 1970s, we were the first. Russia is also creeping up behind us. I know ArcelorMittal, which is a huge international steel company, they have a lot of steel mills in Russia and they import them here. But they also have one here in Ohio, by the way. So it's kind of an interesting area where we're in, where we're trying to reconcile between, what's best is is free trade really the best policy, or should we start imposing this America First policy that Donald Trump has been talking about? And some people, I believe that there were a lot of Republicans who, they said, well, we'll just hop on the train, and Trump isn't going to impose any of those policies that he talked about. But well, this shows that he's putting his balls on the table, and it's gonna be weird seeing whether some of these actually a lot of Republicans have stepped up and said, well, we're not going to vote in favor of. I think he can just impose them without Congress, which kind of sucks if you think about it. If the president can just do whatever the hell he wants in terms of trade policy, but a lot of these Republicans, I think John Cornyn, the Texas senior senator, explicitly said, yeah, this is not, we're not going for this. And some Democrats have come out and said, yeah, this is fantastic. It's like, Twilight Zone. I've seen Occupy Democrats Logic, if you know who they are on Facebook. They're kind of a parody website. They're going out of their minds. They hate this. They've never been Trump fans. It's funny watching this, and this is where you kind of see where Trump mixes up the left and the right. There's elements of the left that would say, yeah, this is a great idea because we have to protect the workers in the United States. Then there's people on the left that would say, well, this is a bit it's jeopardizing our standing in the world. Some people on the left, probably who you would call the internationalist left, like the Joe Bidens and the John Kerrys, they would say, this is not becoming of a U.S. administration looking to engage with the world. Of course, John Kerry, I think he's the most easily spied upon American official in history. I think every single country was able to hack his phone, according to some reports from 2015. And then you have on the right, there's a lot of people who they were, the Steve Bannon type people, and he's, by the way, he's gone completely incognito now, gone. Nobody knows what the hell happened to that guy. Those type of people, they think that this is probably fantastic. Then you got people that are saying, this is a betrayal of the free trade policy. So I think that's a very interesting paradigm. Other than that, let me see here. I see Antonio Rossi is talking to Bandsaw. He says, speaking of our election, I just hope that the PD will plummet below 20%. Well, I think, Antonio, the last I saw, and I was watching RAI International in Italian, which is, it's bizarre how easy it is to understand Italian if you know one of the other languages. Carlos, are you still there?
Yeah.
Can you understand Italian when you hear it on TV?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually it's not that bad. In terms of understanding, it's a pretty fun language to listen to. But it was they were saying that they're probably going to earn about 19%, maybe. And they're really taking it on the nose today. They're being real. They're the punching bag right now of the Italian electorate. They were in power for the past few years. The Democratic Party, those of you that don't know, in Italy, is the party that is most pro-EU. Nothing to do with our Democratic Party, but kind of a similar paradigm here. You're talking about an establishment that seems to have betrayed the base. Would you agree with that, Carlos? Do you think, you say you're not as familiar with Italy, but would you say that wouldn't surprise you if the European Party followed the same paradigm that our American Party, Democratic Party, did?
Well, it's kind of what I was mentioning earlier, and I wouldn't surprise me. But it's kind of what I mentioned earlier. What Mark Blythe is saying is that this whole thing, I wouldn't characterize it as the right wings are rising. It's like it's deeper than that. It's kind of like you're saying, like there's establishment party, and there's people discontent with the establishment party, and they say fuck you. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it might be right, it might be wrong, it might be right or might be left. It doesn't matter. It just so happens, in Italy, for what it seems to me, that the people are tired of the establishment party, and they say fuck you, and we're going I would, because we're discontent. We just don't feel that you guys are doing a good job, so therefore we're going to punish you. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I think that's the the whole, it literally is like a fuck you reaction, because the guy that's the leader of the, and you'll see the graphic here. It's pretty it's pretty clear. This is the head of the Movimento Cinque Stelle. This is Beppo Grillo, and
Oh
I
wow.
mean, look at that. This he is a stand-up comedian.
Oh
That's
yeah, I saw
so.
this guy, and John Oliver was talking about him.
And I've seen, and again, I'm not an Italian speaker at all. I can just understand it sort of from, it's not exactly hard to understand on TV, at least, although they do shout at each other. So yeah, this is the guy. Um, so the guy has, it's all about populism. It's all about, for him, it's all about cutting through bureaucracy, which in Italy people think, Carlos is from California, I'm from Ohio. We probably both have experiences with bureaucracy. In Italy, it's kind of like a daily nightmare that everybody talks about all the time. Waiting in line, I think, is like the second national sport behind soccer football. And the guy is all about making things simpler, making things more accessible to the public, and more transparency. Which, by the way, Italy. Remember, the Vatican is in Italy. There's all this. There's all those banks. The Italian banks are the most unstable in the world. Um, you always have guys that just get murdered for whether it's from the mafia or the Masons. So it's going to be very interesting seeing this guy, who's not going to be the prime minister, but he's going to be a uh, very senior partner in whatever shakes out, because they do have coalition governments. Here in the U.S., we don't have coalition governments. We just have, um, choir boys like Paul Ryan pretending that they're in charge. That's what we have here. But in Italy, they do have coalition governments, and his movement has said that they won't be in one, but they could actually be in charge of one instead of being a partner. Which that's all the insecurity of Italian politics. A lot of people don't think about it because we've never had to deal with anything like it here in the U.S., and we probably wouldn't know how to deal with it at all. Um, Carlos, any final thoughts? I think we should probably close now. Um, what do you think about the way the EU is headed? Do you think it's headed towards the complete disintegration the way I've been predicting, or do you think that I'm kind of exaggerating, or that it'll morph into something else?
I think what's going to happen, it's already happening, is that the discontent with the establishment, whatever it's going to, it's kind of like the exit of the EU, the end of the EU, is not really going to be an anti-EU movement just for the sake of anti-EU. I think what's happening is that there's a discontent with certain establishment, and they find the anti-EU movement as a gateway to express that discontent. So honestly, I don't think people really care more leaving the EU. I mean, I'm sure there's some patriotism in there. I'm sure there's some nationalism in there, but as a general scope, I think it's more of a way for them to tell the parties that they're being fucking up and they don't like him anymore. It's just kind of like what happened in Britain. I think yes, it's partly patriotism, but there's more to it. I mean, it cannot be that simple. There's more issues there, and I think people are gonna take that position as a gateway to say fuck you. So that's kind of my comment on that.
So I do want to bring up a topic that we haven't brought up. I was thinking about it before, but I kind of, because there's so much more news that is I guess we take care of it because it's not as important to most of the world. How about the Oscars, man? Does anybody give a shit about the Oscars?
Dude, Coco. Have you seen Coco, the movie Coco?
No, I haven't. I heard it was great though.
Dude,
did you like it?
Oh yeah, it's freaking amazing. They won the best animated movie, animated film. It was honestly, it's a very colorful movie. I really liked it. It was really, really good, really well done.
Yeah,
I'm happy. I'm happy they won.
Yeah, I saw Moana not long ago. I thought that movie was fantastic. So yeah, maybe I'll check out Coco. But I have there's all this backlash against Hollywood. Speaking of the EU, the only institution I think that has less credibility right now in the world than the EU is Hollywood. And I have a friend of mine who is Italian American, and she wrote, I put Katie Hopkins' comment on it where she said, super excited for, I'm not going to show the screen because I'd be showing people that I know and I don't want to dox them, but she says, super excited for hashtag Oscars 90. So these are the 90th Oscars. Women who shagged their way to the top screeching Me Too. Actors protected by 500 armed officers and sharpshooters yelling never again. And the elite isolated from migrant violence eulogizing about dreamers. Oscars 90s prediction. So this is, of course, Katie Hopkins is British, so she's dealing a lot with the migrant issue. Then my friend, she wrote hashtag complicit cocksuckers, Hollywood whores, and the Oscars. So I can't think of a more Italian way to react to the Oscars. But my friend, so as we sign off, we have this is Carlos. Carlos, I mean, you don't have any site or anything. It's just Carlos here, right? There's only place
Just Carlos.
just Carlos, and it's only here, and it's only once in a while because we're, there's a time difference. So on behalf of Carlos and on behalf of, let's see, we had Bandsaw, Larry, Antonio Rossi, Pinochet. We had Sweet Speaks earlier. Chris Jones, don't forget you. On behalf of everybody, we're going to say Ciao Italia, and have a good night.
Have a good night.